What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crowded Lake. Today we are reading Chapter 7 and 8 of New Rules, a Sandersides fanfic by Bekka911 on Wattpad. If you'd like to check out the fic or the author, both of those links will be in the description below for you to support. Also in the description is a link to a Google form where you can recommend Wattpad Read Aloud fics for the future. Does not need to be a fic from Wattpad. You do not need to be the one that writes it. It could be any fandom of anyone from anywhere. So, super coolio. With that being said, let's go on to Chapter 7. Nothing he did now would change anything, and that was just pure fact. Virgil's cheeks were red and his chest heaved, anger and frustration and hurt seeping from him. There were tears forming in his eyes, tears for himself and his suffering. They weren't tears for Logan. No tears of regret for the words he was spitting like bullets. They were selfish tears. Rational tears. And Logan could understand. And he could forgive. What he could not forgive was himself. He couldn't forgive the sudden tightness in his chest as that quiet hollowness he'd been harboring snapped, disappeared, got drowned out by a high-pitched kneeing. He wondered if the others could hear the shrieking. He couldn't forgive the shorter breaths, the hollow inhaling. He couldn't get any air anymore, and his throat was burning. Burning. He was being irrational. Patton, who had remained uninvolved until now, stepped forward, but Logan held up a hand and morality stopped. Logan leaned forward. "Keep going," he said quietly, not because he wanted to hear it, but because Virgil needed to say it. You don't feel." Virgil's voice was broken. It was frayed and shattered as Virgil sank back into his seat. Logan wondered if the younger side had frayed and shattered and broken too. "You don't know what it's like to have emotions, to love and regret, and to be in emotional pain. You're a robot." "What else?" Virgil sucked in a breath. You don't have a dream?" he said, and Logan stiffened because that was an unfamiliar territory. The robot accusations he could navigate, but this... "You have ambitions, and ambitions are cold. You just do things to get things done. You don't do things for enjoyment because you don't see the point. You sit there and you act so high and mighty, like you're not some kind of freak, like you aren't bothered by the complete lack of emotional understanding, and you're just so mean." Logan heard an undercurrent in Virgil's words, understood what was being said. This wasn't all for him. This was for Virgil too. These were words of self-loathing that had been festering and infecting him. If this was his way of cleansing, it was okay. Then again, Logan knew that Virgil meant a lot of it for the logical side as well, and that stung a bit too much. "I do Sudoku," Logan said, chest aching, voice trembling, heart breaking. It was so emotional of him. But emotions were what Virgil needed right now, so Logan thought maybe it was the time he showed some. "I don't do them because I have to. I do them because I want to, because I understand them. They're logical. They follow patterns. I can understand them. I know what to do. I'm good at Sudokus, and so I do them often." Virgil's breasts were wobbly now. "I like crafters," Logan continued quietly. "I try not to eat it all the time because I like parting my food out so it's healthy. I like doing that because I understand it. I can calculate. But I eat crafters, and I like it. And I don't have to like it." "Logan, I'm a robot, yes, and I'm sorry. I act like nothing more than a machine, and I'm sorry. I don't understand things the way that you do, the way that Pat and Roman and Thomas do. I don't get doubt or depression because I rationalize it. I could break it down. But there are things, Virgil, things I don't understand. I'm not all-knowing, despite how much I wish I was. I hate being wrong. I hate admitting I don't know things. But that's because that's all I'm good at. I'm the one that knows what to do, what the facts are, what the rules are. I'm the one who runs the numbers and makes the plans, because that is who I am. Logan stood up. His hands were shaking. Virgil blinked up at him, guilt coloring his cheeks the slightest hue of pink. I think, Logan said, cutting off the apology he didn't want. I think that my dream is to be a real boy. Then he straightened his glasses, nodded to Patton, and walked away. He was no good with conflicts and emotional conversations. He and Virgil hadn't made up like Patton had wanted, but Logan had displayed something, part of himself, that had been buried in shadows for too long. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step. Chapter 8. The only apology that came easy after that was the apology Logan gave to Patton, who'd followed him in silence back to his room. I know that wasn't the outcome you were hoping for, Logan said, keeping his back to his fellow's side in fear of appearing vulnerable. For that, I am sorry. It is hard for to face my mistakes. And though I deeply regret my words to Virgil, I find them hard to apologize for. Logan, I'm not angry. Something settled in Logan's chest, because yes, he had indeed assumed that Patton would be angry. Logan always seemed to make everyone angry. Virgil has been repressed and shunned for too long, and I made the entire situation worse with my emotional outbursts during his time of depression. Patton took a very deep breath and let down that wall of happiness. Here's morality. He was more than positivity. Logan, he said, today was the right thing to do. Apologizing without meaning it is worse than not apologizing at all. I understand that tensions and Thomas's mixed emotions caused you to be irrationally angry at Virgil, but you've balanced yourself out again now. You've got control again. And Logan hated that he'd admitted everything to Patton in that moment of weakness. He hated that he'd let that information go, had told Patton of the loss of control he'd felt once Virgil's rampant feelings had throbbed Thomas of that cool logic he usually had. Logan had been left to try and cope with the sudden rush of uncensored emotions, illogical and confusing. It had been what led to his unplanned outbursts at Virgil. I will never be a friend to them, Logan said without feeling, his hand flexed. I will never be a friend to you. I do not have the emotional range to be friends with you. Patton gasped quietly, and Logan closed his eyes tightly, as if it would erase his horrible words. But he needed to say this, needed to venture so far past honesty. He needed to wipe the slate clean and then rebuild his image as someone who wouldn't ever be vulnerable again. You're a friend to me already, Patton said quietly, and Logan couldn't keep cool. His emotions, like them or not, were running high, and he was going to break. And Patton... Logan put down his glasses, took off his tie because only serious people wore neckties, and started crying. He only cried harder when he heard a whisper and smelled the sweet scent of oranges. That night he dreamed. It made no sense to him, snippets of clouds and colors, red and cold and sharp. And then he woke up. Again he was alone, but he'd been covered with his blanket, and his tie and glasses were left neatly on his desk. This time there was no note, no breakfast, no warmth to his morning as he got up, got dressed, and then stood in the middle of his room and fought the urge to scream in frustration. His emotions were getting the better of him right now, and he needed to calm down before he lost his sense of who he was. He was logic. He was reason. He was fact, not fiction. He was real. He wasn't a dream. And he was such a horrible person. No, he was fine. He was being the person he needed to be to keep Thomas in balance. He couldn't just cave every time Virgil got upset or Patton used puppy eyes. Logan needed to have a backbone, just so that the others were free to do what they wished with their emotions. He needed to be emotionless, so they could be emotional. Nobody came for him that day. Logan didn't leave his room. Thank you all so much for listening today. All my links are in the description below if you'd like to check out my Twitter, Discord, Instagram. Got a couple things going down around there. There's also a special link to my Etsy shop where I make beaded things if you'd be interested in anything around that kind of style of thing-a-thing. They are pretty cute. The links to the author in the description. Thank you so much for listening, and much like Logan, taking off his necktie, I guess, do your best.